Marcus Rivera wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag, staring at the stack of unpaid bills on his desk. His small auto repair shop in the desert town of Barstow, California, was barely staying afloat. The overhead fluorescent light flickered, casting shadows across the cluttered workspace where he'd spent the last 15 years of his life. "Another repo notice," he muttered, opening the envelope with trembling fingers. The bank was threatening to seize his equipment within 30 days. At 42, Marcus had nothing left except his reputation as the best engine diagnostician in 3 counties, but that wasn't paying the bills anymore. His phone buzzed. Sarah Chen, his only employee and the daughter he never had, appeared in the doorway. "Marcus, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Marcus looked up to see a woman in an expensive black suit standing beside a sleek government vehicle. Agent Rebecca Torres flashed her credentials with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Rivera, I'm with a classified government project. We need your expertise." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "Lady, I can barely fix a pickup truck these days." "Whatever. You're selling, I can't afford it." Agent Torres stepped closer, her expression deadly serious. "We're not selling anything. We're offering you a chance to save lives. How much do you know about aerospace engineering?" "Enough to know it's way above my pay grade," Marcus replied, crossing his arms defensively. "What if I told you we have an engine that's been stumping our best scientists for 6 months? Something that defies everything we know about propulsion technology?" Marcus frowned. "I'd say you're talking to the wrong guy. I work on cars, not rockets." Agent Torres pulled out a tablet and showed him a photograph that made his breath catch. It wasn't like anything he'd ever seen before. The metallic surface seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly quality, and the geometric patterns etched into its surface hurt to look at directly. This craft crashed in the Nevada desert 3 months ago. Our entire team of aerospace engineers, quantum physicists, and mechanical specialists have been unable to even start it, let alone understand how it works. Marcus studied the image more carefully. Despite its alien appearance, something about the underlying structure seemed familiar. "Why me?" "Because you see engines differently than anyone else. Your diagnostic reports read like poetry. You don't just fix machines. You understand them on an intuitive level." Sarah appeared beside Marcus, having overheard the conversation. "Marcus, the rent is due next week. Maybe you should listen to what she's offering." Agent Torres nodded toward Sarah. "Smart girl. We're prepared to pay you $50,000 for 1 week of consultation. If you can get it running, there's a bonus of $200,000. Marcus felt his knees go weak. That money would save his shop, pay off his debts, and give him a fresh start. But something about this felt dangerous. "What exactly am I getting into here?" he asked. "Something that could change the future of human space exploration," Agent Torres replied. "But I won't lie to you, Mr. Rivera. This technology is beyond our current understanding. We need someone who thinks outside conventional parameters." Marcus looked around his failing shop, then at Sarah's hopeful expression. "When do we leave?" 2 hours later, Marcus found himself in the back of a military transport plane, flying toward a classified facility in the middle of nowhere. Agent Torres sat across from him, briefing him on what little they knew. "The craft appeared on our radar for exactly 17 seconds before it went down. No communication, no distress signals. When our recovery team reached the crash site, they found something that shouldn't exist." Marcus studied the detailed photographs she handed him. The more he looked, the more intrigued he became. "These energy conduits? They're not following any conventional wiring pattern, but there's definitely a logic to it. Our engineers said the same thing. They've been mapping the systems for months, but every time they try to power it up, nothing happens." "Have they considered that maybe they're approaching it wrong?" Marcus asked. Sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions. Agent. Torres raised an eyebrow. Explain. Marcus pointed to a section of the photograph. Look at these connection points. Everyone's probably assuming they work like our technology. But what if they operate on completely different principles? What if they're not trying to start an engine, but wake up something that's already alive? The plane began its descent toward Area 51. Marcus had heard rumors about this place his entire life, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality. The facility stretched for miles underground, a maze of corridors and laboratories that hummed with activity. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, the project's lead scientist, met them at the entrance. Her white lab coat couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. "Mr. Rivera, I hope Agent Torres explained the situation clearly. We're running out of time." "Running out of time for what?" Marcus asked as they walked through seemingly endless hallways. "The craft's systems are degrading. Whatever keeps it functional is breaking down, and we estimate we have less than 48 hours before it becomes completely inert." They entered a massive hangar where the impossible craft sat under bright floodlights. Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. Seeing it in photographs was one thing, but witnessing it in person was overwhelming. The ship was about the size of a small house, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Strange symbols covered its surface, pulsing with a faint, rhythmic glow that reminded Marcus of a heartbeat. "My God," he whispered. Dr. Morgan nodded grimly. "Our materials analysis indicates components that don't exist in our periodic table. The hull is some kind of smart metal that repairs itself. And the engine—" She gestured toward an opening in the craft's underside. "Well, you'll see." Marcus approached the ship slowly, feeling an odd sensation in the pit of his stomach. As he got closer, the symbols seemed to pulse brighter, as if responding to his presence. "Has anyone noticed that it reacts differently to different people?" he asked. Dr. Morgan looked surprised. "How did you know that?" "It took us weeks to figure that out. It responds most strongly to individuals with mechanical aptitude, but we've never seen it react this intensely to anyone." Marcus placed his hand on the hull and felt a slight vibration, like the purr of a contented cat. "It's not broken," he said suddenly. "It's lonely." The scientists exchanged skeptical glances, but Agent Torres stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. This thing traveled across impossible distances to get here. It's probably been running for longer than human civilization has existed. Now it's stuck on an alien world, surrounded by people who don't understand it." Marcus ran his hand along the ship's surface. "It's not refusing to start. It's afraid." "Doctor," Morgan scoffed. "Mr. Rivera, with all due respect, this is advanced technology, not a lost puppy." But Marcus was already climbing into the ship through the access hatch. The interior was even more bewildering than the exterior. Surfaces seemed to shift and change as he looked at them, and the air itself felt different, charged with energy. The engine room defied description. What should have been machinery looked more like a living organism. Crystalline structures pulsed with soft light, connected by what appeared to be veins rather than wires. "It's biological," Marcus breathed into his radio. "Or at least partially. No wonder your conventional approach isn't working." He approached the central console, which responded to his presence by illuminating with dozens of symbols. As he studied them, patterns began to emerge. It wasn't random at all. It was a language. "Dr. Morgan, I need you to document everything I'm about to do, and I need complete silence. I think this thing is trying to communicate." Marcus placed both hands on the console and closed his eyes. Instead of trying to force the ship to respond to human logic, he tried to understand its logic. The symbols weren't just decorative. They were a form of communication, a way for the ship to express its needs and fears. Slowly, carefully, he began to trace patterns on the console, following instincts he didn't fully understand. The ship responded, its heartbeat-like pulse quickening. Systems that had been dormant for months began to flicker to life. "Mr. Rivera," Dr. Morgan's voice came through his earpiece. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop. We're reading system activations throughout the entire craft." But Marcus was barely listening. He was lost in a kind of mechanical meditation, feeling his way through the ship's consciousness. It was scared, confused, and desperately homesick. But underneath that, he sensed something else. Hope. The engine room filled with a warm golden light as the ship's primary systems came online. Through the hull, Marcus could hear excited voices and the sound of equipment beeping as monitors throughout the facility registered the impossible. The alien craft was not just running, it was ready to fly. Marcus opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by softly glowing symbols that seemed to welcome him. For the first time in months, he smiled with genuine joy. He had done the impossible. But as he prepared to exit the ship and share his triumph with the team, the console displayed a new message. The symbols were different now, more urgent. Marcus studied them carefully, and when he finally understood their meaning, his blood ran cold. The ship wasn't just trying to go home, it was trying to warn Earth about something terrible that was coming. Let's play a little game with those who only read the comments. Type "rocket" in the comments. Only those who made it this far will understand. Now let's continue with the story. Marcus stared at the pulsing symbols on the console, his heart racing as their meaning became clear. The ship wasn't just homesick, it was a refugee, and it had a message that could save or doom humanity. "Dr. Morgan," he called through his radio, his voice tight with urgency. "I need you and Agent Torres in here immediately, and bring your best linguist." Within minutes, the cramped engine room was filled with the project's top personnel. Dr. Morgan squeezed through the hatch, followed by Agent Torres and Dr. James Park, the facility's xenolinguistics expert. "What did you find?" Dr. Morgan asked, her eyes scanning the now active displays. Marcus pointed to the central console where new symbols continued to appear in waves. "It's trying to tell us something. These aren't just operational commands. They're warnings. The ship detected something in our solar system, something that made it crash land here instead of continuing its journey." Dr. Park pulled out a tablet and began photographing the symbols. "The pattern structure is unlike anything in our databases. It's not mathematical, not linguistic in any conventional sense. It's almost emotional." "That's exactly what it is," Marcus said, his hand still resting on the console. Through the connection, he could feel the ship's anxiety like a physical weight. "This ship is alive, or at least semi-alive. It's been running from something for a very long time." Agent Torres stepped forward, her expression grim. "Running from what?" Before Marcus could answer, the ship's systems surged with new energy. The walls around them became transparent, displaying a three-dimensional star map that filled the entire room. Earth appeared as a small blue dot, but it wasn't alone. A massive object was approaching from the outer solar system, moving with deliberate purpose. "Dear God," Dr. Morgan whispered. "Is that what I think it is?" The approaching object was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the ship they were standing in. But more terrifying than its size was its obvious artificial nature. This wasn't a natural celestial body or even another crashed ship. It was a vessel of war. Marcus felt the ship's terror wash over him as new images appeared. He saw worlds reduced to ash, civilizations that had thrived for millennia wiped out in hours. The approaching vessel was a harvester, consuming entire planets to fuel its journey across the galaxy. How long do we have? Agent Torres asked, her training keeping her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were seeing. Marcus concentrated, trying to interpret the temporal symbols. The ship's calculations suggest 6 months, maybe 7. That thing is using gravity assist maneuvers around Jupiter to accelerate toward Earth. Dr. Park was frantically recording everything. This is unprecedented. We're looking at proof of not just alien life, but an active threat to our entire species. There's more, Marcus said, as new information flowed through his connection with the ship. This vessel, our ship, it's not just a refugee. It's a scout, an advance warning system. Its people sent it ahead to warn worlds in the Harvester's path. The star map zoomed in, showing the Harvester's previous path of destruction. Dozens of star systems lay dark and lifeless in its wake. But here and there, a few systems showed signs of survival, worlds that had been warned in time and had managed to defend themselves or evacuate. Agent Torres was already on her radio, calling for an immediate conference with the facility director. We need to contact Washington immediately. The president needs to know about this. But Marcus held up his hand. Wait. There's something else. The ship is trying to show us how they survived, the worlds that made it through. The display changed, showing a world not unlike Earth. But this planet was surrounded by a network of defensive satellites and energy barriers. Most importantly, they had modified their own technology using principles learned from ships like the one Marcus was connected to. They reverse-engineered the alien technology, Dr. Morgan said, understanding immediately. They used it to defend themselves. Marcus nodded, but his expression was troubled. That's the good news. The bad news is that it took them decades to understand the technology well enough to build effective defenses. We have months, not decades. Unless, Dr. Park said slowly, we have someone who can understand the technology intuitively. All eyes turned to Marcus. The weight of their expectations was crushing, but through his connection with the ship, he could feel something else. Hope. The ship believed in him, trusted him in a way that transcended species and understanding. I need to go deeper, Marcus said. The ship has more information, but it's locked away in deeper systems. It's afraid to share everything because... He paused, processing new emotional input from the ship. Because the last world it tried to help used the information to attack other survivors instead of defending against the Harvester. Agent Torres stepped closer. Can you convince it to trust us? Marcus closed his eyes and reached out through the connection, trying to project human emotions and intentions. It was like trying to speak a language he'd never learned, using concepts that had no direct translation. Through the ship's consciousness, Marcus felt its long journey. Centuries of solitude, watching worlds die, carrying the burden of knowledge that could save or damn entire civilizations. The ship had been betrayed before, had seen its gifts used for evil, but it had also seen courage, sacrifice, and the best of what intelligent life could be. Slowly, carefully, Marcus projected his own memories, working late into the night to fix a neighbor's car for free, teaching Sarah everything he knew about engines without expecting anything in return, the simple satisfaction of solving problems and helping people. He showed the ship his own struggles, his failures, and his determination to never give up. The ship's emotional state shifted. Marcus felt its ancient loneliness begin to ease, replaced by something that felt remarkably like trust. New displays activated throughout the engine room. Technical schematics flowed across the walls. Weapon systems, shield generators, propulsion technologies that defied physics as humans understood it. But more than that, the ship began to share the accumulated knowledge of a dozen civilizations, each one building on the work of those who came before. My God, Dr. Morgan breathed. This is a complete technological archive. Weapons, defenses, manufacturing processes, everything we need to fight back. Dr. Park was overwhelmed by the flood of information. This will take years to translate and understand. We don't have that kind of time. But Marcus was smiling for the first time since entering the ship. We don't need years. The ship doesn't just want to share information, it wants to help us. Build what we need. It can guide our manufacturing, optimize our resources, even help train our people. Agent Torres looked skeptical. You're talking about integrating alien technology into our defense systems in a matter of months. That's impossible. Not impossible, Marcus said, his hand still connected to the console. Through the ship, he could see the path forward. Difficult, dangerous, but possible. Improbable, maybe, but not impossible. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The facility's communication systems worked overtime as news of the threat reached the highest levels of government. Within 8 hours, President Harrison was on a secure video conference with the project team. "Mr. Rivera," the president said, her voice carrying the weight of office, "I'm told you're the only person who can communicate effectively with this vessel. Is what we're seeing accurate? Are we really facing an extinction-level threat?" Marcus looked directly into the camera. "Madam President, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but yes. The Harvester will reach Earth in approximately 6 months. Without effective defenses, our planet will be stripped of all life to fuel its continued journey." The president was silent for a long moment. "And you believe this alien ship can help us build those defenses?" "I believe it's our only hope," Marcus replied honestly. "But it's going to require unprecedented cooperation between nations, unlimited resources, and a willingness to trust technology we don't fully understand." "What do you need?" Marcus had been preparing for this question. "First, we need to move the ship to a facility with manufacturing capabilities. Second, we need teams of our best engineers, physicists, and materials scientists. Third, we need to contact other world leaders immediately. This isn't just America's problem, it's humanity's problem." The president nodded grimly. "You'll have whatever you need. Dr. Morgan, I'm putting you in charge of Project Defender. Agent Torres, coordinate with our allies. Mr. Rivera—" She paused, studying him through the screen. "I don't know what qualifications typically prepare someone to save the world, but apparently fixing car engines is one of them. Don't let us down." The next 3 months transformed the world. As news of the threat leaked to the public, initial panic gave way to unprecedented global cooperation. The ship was transported to a massive facility in Nevada, where the world's best minds worked around the clock to understand and implement alien technologies. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, serving as translator between human engineers and alien systems. The ship, which the team had begun calling Hope, responded to his guidance by optimizing manufacturing processes and teaching human technicians to work with technologies that seemed like magic. Sarah had joined the project as Marcus's assistant, her quick mind adapting to concepts that left seasoned physicists scratching their heads. "Marcus," she said one evening as they reviewed the day's progress, "do you ever think about how crazy this all is? 6 months ago, you were worried about paying rent." Marcus smiled tiredly as he watched teams of workers assembling the first orbital defense platform. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming. But then Hope shows me images of the worlds that didn't make it, and I remember why we're doing this." The old ship had shared more than just technology. It had shared memories. Marcus had experienced the final moments of civilizations, felt the despair of entire species as they realized their defenses weren't enough. But he had also experienced the triumph of those who survived, the joy of worlds that lived to see another sunrise. The construction progressed faster than anyone had thought possible. Hope's guidance allowed human engineers to build components, using materials and methods that should have taken decades to develop. The first orbital platform came online ahead of schedule, followed quickly by 3 more. But the real breakthrough came when Hope revealed the possibility of not just defending Earth, but actively deterring the Harvester. The alien ship contained manufacturing templates for a massive energy weapon, one capable of damaging or even destroying the approaching threat. The weapon is called a Star Lance, Dr. Morgan explained to the assembled world leaders during a crucial briefing. It focuses solar energy through a series of orbital collectors and amplifiers, creating a beam capable of cutting through the Harvester's armor. The Russian president leaned forward on the screen. "What are the risks?" Marcus answered directly. "If we miss, or if the weapon isn't powerful enough, we've revealed our capabilities and lost the element of surprise. The Harvester will adapt, its approach making conventional defenses much less effective." The Chinese premier spoke up. "And if we do nothing, then Earth dies," Marcus said simply. "Hope has shown me the Harvester's capabilities. Our orbital platforms might delay it, but they won't stop it. The Star Lance is our best chance." The decision was unanimous. Construction began immediately, on the most ambitious engineering project in human history. Solar collectors the size of cities were assembled in space, connected by energy conduits that stretched across millions of miles. The orbital assembly required the combined resources of every spacefaring nation and several that weren't. Marcus spent most of his time in space now, working directly with the construction teams as Hope guided the assembly of components that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. The ship had been integrated into the weapons control systems, its consciousness serving as the targeting computer for humanity's desperate gamble. 1 month before the Harvester's arrival, the weapon was ready. The Star Lance stretched across Earth's orbital space like a vast mechanical constellation, its collectors drinking in solar energy and storing it in crystalline batteries based on Hope's technology. But as the final tests concluded, Marcus received troubling information from Hope. The ship's long-range sensors had detected changes in the Harvester's approach vector. It was slowing down, becoming more cautious. "It knows we're here," Marcus announced to the project leadership. "Hope thinks the Harvester detected our orbital platforms. It's changing its approach to minimize exposure." Agent Torres, now director of Global Defense Coordination, studied the tactical display. "Can we still target it effectively?" Marcus consulted with Hope, processing complex orbital mechanics and energy calculations that made his head spin. "Yes, but we'll only get one shot. If we miss, it will almost certainly change course entirely and approach from a different angle, probably taking several more months to arrive." Giving it time to prepare specific countermeasures, Dr. Morgan added grimly. The pressure was enormous. Humanity had one chance to save itself, and that chance rested on technology they barely understood, guided by an alien consciousness and operated by a former auto mechanic from California. The night before the planned attack, Marcus couldn't sleep. He found himself back aboard Hope, sitting quietly in the engine room that had become as familiar as his old repair shop. The ship's consciousness touched his mind gently, sharing its own anxiety about the coming battle. "You're scared too," Marcus said aloud, knowing Hope would understand his meaning if not his words. Through their connection, Hope shared a complex emotion, fear mixed with determination, sadness tempered by hope. The ship had lost so much, seen so many worlds fall, but it had never stopped trying to help, never stopped believing that intelligence and courage could triumph over destruction. Sarah found him there an hour before the attack was scheduled to begin. "How are you holding up?" Marcus managed a weak smile. "Terrified. What if I make a mistake? What if Hope's calculations are wrong? What if— Hey, Sarah interrupted, sitting beside him on the alien floor. Remember when Mrs. Patterson brought in that old truck and you spent 3 days figuring out what was wrong with it? Marcus nodded. It had been one of his prouder moments, solving a problem that had stumped 2 other mechanics. You didn't fix it because you had the best tools or the most experience. You fixed it because you listened to what the engine was trying to tell you. That's what you're doing now, just on a bigger scale. Marcus felt Hope's agreement ripple through their connection. The ship understood Sarah's words, recognized the truth in them. This wasn't about having perfect knowledge or making no mistakes. It was about listening, understanding, and responding with wisdom and courage. The attack began at dawn, Earth time. The Harvester was still 6 hours away from its closest approach, but the Star Lance needed time to charge and target. Marcus took his position at the weapon's control interface, Hope's consciousness merging with his own as they became a hybrid targeting system. Through Hope's sensors, Marcus could see the Harvester clearly for the first time. It was even more terrifying than the projections had suggested, a writhing mass of metallic tentacles and processing chambers, easily the size of Manhattan. Smaller craft swarmed around it like antibodies, already beginning to deploy in defensive formations. Charging sequence initiated, Dr. Morgan announced from the control center. Energy collectors are drawing maximum solar input. Marcus felt the weapon's power building through his connection with Hope. The collected solar energy flowed through the crystalline conduits like liquid fire, building to levels that would have been unimaginable just months ago. Target is beginning evasive maneuvers, Agent Torres reported. It's detected our energy buildup. The Harvester was moving now, using its smaller craft to create interference patterns and deploying what looked like reflective barriers. It had clearly encountered Star Lance weapons before and knew how to defend against them. But Hope had been expecting this. Through their connection, Marcus felt the ship's ancient wisdom guiding the weapon's targeting systems, compensating for the Harvester's defensive measures in ways that human computers never could have calculated. Firing solution locked, Marcus announced, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. All collectors charged to maximum capacity. You have authorization to fire, came the president's voice over the comm system. Marcus closed his eyes and let Hope's consciousness fully merge with his own. For a moment, he ceased to be Marcus Rivera, auto mechanic from Barstow. He became something new, a bridge between species, a fusion of human intuition and alien wisdom. Fire, he whispered. The Star Lance erupted in a beam of pure solar energy that turned the darkness of space into blazing day. The weapon's power was so intense that it was visible from Earth's surface, a lance of light stretching across the solar system toward its target. The beam struck the Harvester dead center, punching through its defensive barriers like they were paper. For a moment, the massive ship continued its approach, seemingly unaffected. Then, slowly, it began to break apart. The destruction was beautiful and terrible. Sections of the Harvester peeled away like layers of an onion, each one larger than most human cities. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive structure as its power systems overloaded, and its smaller craft were consumed in the collapse. But the most remarkable thing was what happened next. As the Harvester died, it released something, a signal, a cry that Hope detected and translated for Marcus. It wasn't just a weapon or a mindless consumer. It had been a living ship, like Hope, but one that had been corrupted, transformed into an instrument of destruction by some ancient trauma. In its final moments, the Harvester's original consciousness briefly reasserted itself, sending out a message of gratitude and relief. It had been trapped for millennia, forced to destroy worlds it had once tried to protect. The Star Lance hadn't just destroyed a threat, it had freed a prisoner. Hope shared this revelation with Marcus, who passed it on to the project team. The implications were staggering. The harvesters weren't an invading species. They were victims, ships like Hope that had been corrupted and enslaved by some greater darkness. "There are more of them out there," Marcus announced to the assembled world leaders. "Hope estimates dozens, maybe hundreds of corrupted ships, all following the same pattern of destruction. We didn't just save Earth, we learned how to save them too." The president's voice was thoughtful. "Are you suggesting we actively hunt down these harvesters?" Marcus looked around the control room, seeing the faces of people who had worked tirelessly to save their world. Sarah was grinning with relief and pride. Dr. Morgan was already making notes about improvements to the Starlance design. Agent Torres was coordinating with defense forces around the globe. "I'm suggesting we do what Hope has been doing for centuries," Marcus said. "We warn other worlds, share our technology, and when we encounter corrupted harvesters, we free them instead of just defending against them." Hope's consciousness touched his mind with approval and something that felt remarkably like pride. The little ship had found not just allies, but true partners in its ancient mission. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his rebuilt repair shop in Barstow, California. The government had honored their agreement, paying him far more than the promised amount. He could have retired comfortably, could have lived anywhere in the world. Instead, he had returned home and expanded his business. But this wasn't the same repair shop he had nearly lost a year earlier. Now it served as both an auto garage and a training center for the new generation of human-alien hybrid technologies. Young engineers came from around the world to learn the intuitive approach to mechanical problem-solving that had saved humanity. Sarah ran the technical training program, teaching students to listen to machines the way Marcus had learned to listen to Hope. The ship itself remained in orbit, now serving as the command center for humanity's expanding defense network and exploration program. "Marcus," Sarah called from the classroom section of the shop, "the students are ready for their final exam." Marcus smiled and walked over to observe. 20 young people from 12 different countries sat at workstations, each one containing a piece of technology that combined human engineering with alien principles. Their task was simple in concept, but nearly impossible in execution. Diagnose and repair a malfunctioning component using only intuition and observation. It was the same test Marcus had unknowingly passed when he first connected with Hope, the test that had revealed his unique ability to bridge the gap between human and alien understanding. One by one, the students succeeded, their faces lighting up with the same joy Marcus had felt when he first brought Hope's systems online. They were the future, a generation that would grow up thinking of alien technology not as foreign and frightening, but as simply another type of machine to understand and work with. That evening, Marcus received a transmission from Hope, now working with a joint human-alien crew aboard a new class of exploration vessel. The ship had evolved beyond its original form, incorporating human innovations with its alien technology, to become something entirely new. The message was simple but profound. Hope had detected signals from the Vega system, not the electromagnetic signature of another harvester, but the deliberate communications of a civilization under threat. Humanity's first mission to save another world was about to begin. Marcus looked up at the stars, no longer seeing them as distant points of light, but as neighbors waiting to be discovered and protected. A year ago, he had been a failing mechanic, worried about paying his bills. Now he was part of something larger than he had ever imagined possible. His phone buzzed with a message from Agent Torres, now director of the Interstellar Defense Initiative. "Marcus, we need you for the Vega mission. Hope says the ship responds better when you're aboard. Are you interested?" Marcus looked around his shop, at the students working late into the evening, at Sarah coordinating with engineers on 3 different continents, at the evidence of how much the world had changed. Then he looked back at the stars and smiled. "Tell Hope I'll be there," he typed back. "After all, we have more worlds to save." Above him, invisible to the naked eye but visible to those who knew how to look, Hope's sister ships were already beginning their journey to Vega. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, no longer just defending their single world. They had become part of something greater, a network of civilizations dedicated to preserving life and freedom across the galaxy. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that Marcus had discovered in a desert repair shop. Sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions, and sometimes the most important work is done not by those with the most credentials, but by those with the biggest hearts. The stars were calling, and humanity was finally ready to answer. What did you think of Marcus and Hope's incredible journey? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep up with all our amazing stories. Don't miss more heartwarming tales by clicking on the screen now.